One of my favorite podcasters, who's also an author, is named John Green. The podcast I like so much is called The Anthropocene Reviewed. In this podcast, Green reviews facets of the human-centered life and rates them. My favorite piece is about our capacity, the human capacity, for wonder. Green quotes a famous line from the novel Great Gatsby. In this quote, the narrator is lying on a beach, considering the first sailors that came to America. The narrator says this: "For a transitory, enchanted moment, man must have held his breath in the presence of this continent, compelled into an aesthetic contemplation he neither understood nor desired, face to face for the last time in history with something commensurate to his capacity for wonder." I know that's a lot of words, but something commensurate to our capacity to wonder. Something that lives up to, something in proportion with, our very capacity to wonder. Now, in spite of all the things wrong with this passage from Great Gatsby, like the words that none of us use in common conversation, or the latent, apparent assumption that this continent was empty when Europeans got here, I'm drawn to the quote. I'm particularly drawn to the phrase, commensurate to our capacity to wonder. I believe that F. Scott Fitzgerald was right about the ability of God's creation to match our ability to wonder and marvel. But I think that he was wrong in this example. He was wrong in that this was the last time creation lived up to our wonder. From the beginning of creation to this very day, creation constantly lives up to, if not exceeds, my capacity to wonder. This story in Genesis records the work of God as God speaks creation into being. God says light, and there is light. God says let the waters be gathered together, and they are. God says let the vegetation spring forth, and it does. God wills order out of chaos and existence out of nothing. And after all of this creating, after all of these words spoken and this universe brought into existence, God looks at this creation and says, "This is beautiful. This is pleasant. This is good. This is very good." I think that it's easy to get a little lost in this passage. It comes with a lot of baggage. There's a lot of noise around the 6 days about logistics and timing. This drowns out the most important part of this message, the theological claim of this passage. God created this world. God really enjoyed it. And God gave us the opportunity to enjoy it too. In this season of Lent, we are spending time exploring the gifts which God has given us. We're exploring how to respond to God by using those gifts. We talked about the gift of grace, and we challenged one another to consider how we have received grace and how we might respond to God's grace. We talked about the gift that God has given us of our bodies. We were challenged to consider one small way we might honor the bodies God has given us. One of the greatest and most wondrous gifts that we have been given by God is this planet, this creation in which we live, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the skies stretched above our heads and the ground which shifts beneath our feet, the plants that soak up the sun, and the animals that run and dance and hunt and live. All of these things are created by God. God looks at all of these things and says, "That's good." All of these things are gifts for us to enjoy. but not just gifts for us to enjoy, not just gifts for us to celebrate, gifts for us to preserve, protect, and sustain. Within the verses of our story, God presents a challenge to humanity to have dominion over creation. This is not a dominion of exploitation. This is a dominion of caring and nurture. God calls humanity, we creatures, to be stewards, to be shepherds for the rest of creation, tending to it, protecting it, and preserving it. But we have indeed let God down. We have failed in our God-given task to be stewards and shepherds of God's creation. We have grasped at creation. We have exploited creation. We have looked at creation and thought not, this is good, but this is valuable, this is useful, we can use this. Temperature around our globe is increasing at an alarming rate. Our ecosystem is suffering, and we are suffering too, because we are part of this creation. I can't help but wonder, I can't help but question, if we have done this, if we have committed this atrocious sin, because we have forgotten to look at creation with wonder. John Green tells another story about going for a hike with his son, who at the time was about 2 years old. It was autumn, and they stopped at a particularly breathtaking scenic overlook, a vista showing a wide expanse of trees, an entire forest of beautiful colors. John said to his son, "Wow, just look at that. Look at that, Henry." His son responded, "Weef." John said, "What?" And his son replied, "Weef." John realized that rather than looking at the vast, beautiful forest stretched out before them, his son was observing one shriveled brown leaf. John was annoyed at his son's desire to look only at the mundane brown leaf that could be found anywhere on the East Coast in the fall. Nothing in the forest was less interesting. But after watching his son look at it, John began to look at it too. This was not just a brown leaf. The red and orange and yellow veins spidered out in a pattern too complex for his brain to grasp. The more he looked at the leaf, the more he realized that he was face to face with something commensurate to his capacity for wonder. He was reminded that the beauty of creation is as much about how and whether you look as what you see. Friends, we must remember to look at creation with wonder. We must remember how to be awed by this universe God has created. Whether you marvel at the vastness of space or the intricate patterns on a leaf, we must remember how to look at creation and say, this is beautiful, this is pleasant, this is good. And then we need to get to work. We need to do the big things. We need to do the little things that God is calling us as stewards, as shepherds of creation to do. What can you do? What is God calling you to do? Is it something big? Millions of people around the world have been marching to demand action on climate change. Scientists and experts around the globe are striving to teach us about possible action to protect this planet. Is it something small? I saw a guy named Edgar McGregor, that was his real name, Edgar McGregor, on Twitter this week. He is in his 41st week of cleaning up trash every single day, rain or shine. He's almost on day 300. Because meat is one of the least environmentally friendly forms of food, many people have become vegetarian, or at least gone to meatless Mondays to play a small role in combating climate change. What can you do? What will you do? Friends, we have been given an incredible gift. It is beautiful. It is pleasant. It is good. Let's help keep it that way. Amen.